Welcome to the Seahawks Draft Blog live stream instant reaction podcast. Rob Staton and Robbie Williams here to discuss a game that had all the tension of a wet hot dog. And Robbie and I are laughing because we actually started this stream 2 minutes ago and forgot to hit live. So that is the second time that he has heard that line. But the Seahawks were victorious, and it was a game that, as I was saying to Robbie in our previous intro, I have not yawned as many times in a Seahawks game before as that game today. It was boring, frankly, and I'm really pleased the Seahawks have won, Robbie. Really happy that they have ended this 3-game skid. I'm glad to see DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett involved, and that they got some statistics today. But what I really feel like we learned from this is that the Jaguars are a disgrace. The Jaguars are awful. They are a college team playing in the NFL. Even with Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 overall pick on their roster, they don't appear to have any hope. They seem to be directionless. They won a game against the Dolphins, who were equally rudderless in England, in London, before their bye. And I guess if you were a hardcore Jags fan, if those kind of people exist, they would have thought maybe this is the turning point. You know, they've got to win. They were showing some signs of improvement. Go to Seattle, try and continue that against a struggling team. That was the way that they played. It was worse than the 2009 Seahawks under Jim Mora. I mean, they need to get rid of Urban Meyer in the offseason to try and save Trevor Lawrence's career. But yeah, the Seahawks won. They had to win against that kind of an opponent. I'm going to take very little from that game, Robbie, frankly. And if anybody spends the next 2 weeks during this bye trying to argue that the Seahawks have turned a corner in any way whatsoever because they won that game today, then you're kidding yourself. There are still a lot of issues here with the Seahawks that were not going to be solved in a game like this. I mean, they won the game 31-7 in the end. They only had 229 total yards. 229 total yards in the game. That's 80 fewer than Jacksonville. They never had to get out of second gear, Seattle, to win this game at a canter. So, not a very exciting day, albeit one. Of course, look, I want to see the Seahawks win as much as anybody else. So I'm pleased that they did, Robbie. Before I bring you in, Super Chat away if you want to get involved. I have to say that it is a relief that this game kicked off at 8:05 my time rather than 1:25 like the last three. But if you want to jump in with a Super Chat, feel free. We will go to those in the comment section immediately. Otherwise, drop your comments into the live chat. We will come to them. Robbie, what's your instant reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really took away from this game is that the Jaguars just are not a good team. I mean, that's it. And Urban Meyer's taking this team nowhere. I think I was already saying prior in our previous little podcast that wasn't live, that the only thing I learned is that I relearned how bad Rashad Penny sucks. And the fact that they keep trying to give him the ball on the goal line there early in the game and get him touches. And like I said, they're trying to get him going. I don't know if they're trying to get his trade value up or something, but he just shouldn't be playing. And, you know, look, I'm stoked we won. Like, I'm happy we won. I was excited for DK and Tyler and the way they played. And, you know, hey, Geno Smith, you went 14 for 14 right out the gate, and you're the only quarterback in the league to do that this year. Good for you. Like, those are sure good things. But, yeah, we definitely haven't, like, turned a corner. There's nothing about this game that makes me think, hey, we've turned a corner and we're definitely on our way to, turning this thing around. And I got kind of annoyed, actually, with the announcers being like, well, you know, the NFC, the wild card, is still right there. You know, they still have a chance if they can get hot and Russell comes back. I just think they're putting too much. They're giving us a little too much love, because I just don't think that's the case. I just don't think we look like a very good all around team. But hey, like, I do think, you know, Daryl Taylor makes a difference when he plays. You can immediately tell what a difference maker he is, getting after the pass rush. And, you know, there's things to like about the team. You know, there's things that keep me coming back and be like, oh, I'm stoked about this, but there's just not enough there. And especially against a bad Jaguars team, like, you know, let's see how we play against the Packers and the Cardinals. If we can come away with those 2 wins, then maybe we'll start talking.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that people can look at this, and I'm sure people will. I mean, during the week, Robbie, immediately off the back of the Saints loss, all of the national media on Tuesday were talking about the future of Pete Carroll. So, you know, all the big shows on ESPN, they had like Mina Kimes go on and say Carroll needs to go and argue with Stephen A. Smith. They had Colin Cowherd talking about it. for a couple of days. He had Greg Olsen on and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of the other ones that were discussing it. Like the Carroll future was a big topic. And then here in Seattle, you had Mike Solk saying, oh, the playoffs are still on. And it was like, oh, come on. But you're going to hear a lot of talk like that this week. There's going to be a lot of, they brought up that table at the end of the broadcast. Well, the Seahawks are 3-5 and they're only a little bit behind, teams they've already lost to. So they've already got the advantage in sort of the win-loss record. They've got like an extra win there because they've already lost to the Vikings. They've already lost to the Saints. So people have to remember that. But so they're 3-5 now. And even with Russell Wilson, they've struggled mightily in Lambeau over the years. They are rubbish in Lambeau. If there's one consistent thing during the Carroll era is the Seahawks lose badly in Lambeau. So if they lose that game, they're 3-6. And then they play the Cardinals. And, I can't think of two worse games to have next. So they could be 3-7. And there's no guarantee that Wilson's coming back for Green Bay or Arizona, by the way. It's just kind of assumed that he'll be back because that's the earliest he can be back. But we'll see. And if he doesn't play in Green Bay, they are going to be 3-6. And if, the Arizona game might be a little closer, divisional game, tended to play Arizona close regardless. It's looking, I think the talk of the playoffs is ridiculous. And if you are wasting your time talking about that in the Seattle media this week, then you're not doing a good job. We need to, I think the one thing about this, Robbie, is that this will just park for 2 weeks. What would have happened if they'd have lost this game is there would have been real talk about the future direction of the franchise and everything to do with that if they'd lost. By winning, they avoid all of that. But let's not go too far the other way and start having, ridiculous conversations about the defense have turned a corner because they played this Jaguars team. Or let's not say, oh, wasn't it great that the game planning and stuff like that? Oh, they did this and they did that. Yeah, give it a rest. And, I've just written in the instant reaction post with the general thought, Robbie, that yes, it was nice at the start of the game to see the offense showing a bit more creativity. They were more aggressive on first and second down. They actually seemed to have a plan for Metcalf and Lockett. But my problem with that, Robbie, is I was watching this, I was thinking, as nice as this is, it highlights the complete and utter cowardice of the Seahawks under Carroll. The cowards. They completely refused to do any of this against the Saints. Instead, we'll just run into the brick wall 3 times against the Saints and punt and play field position and hope that Jameis Winston's going to make a mistake and hope to win the game 13-10. That's how they played on Monday Night Football with the season on the line against an NFC opponent. That's how they played. In their shell, conservative nonsense. And they lost and they deserved to lose. And then they come out today against a terrible opponent in the AFC. And it's like, oh, we're going to be a bit more aggressive now because we can be. Cowardice. Scared to lose against the Saints. Wouldn't be aggressive. Wouldn't try and take the game to them in any way whatsoever. Just cling on and hope for the best. And today, oh, you'll show a bit of bravery today against the Jags. Pathetic. And that's the problem that I have, Robbie. It's pathetic, frankly. And this is the problem I have with Pete Carroll, why I'm sick of seeing this. I've been watching Red Zone. No one tell me what the score is of these games either. I pause it to watch up to the end of this. I'm seeing Trevor Siemian come in for Jameis Winston, and Sean Payton's been more aggressive against the Super Bowl champs with Trevor Siemian, who was the 3rd quarterback in New Orleans, than the Seahawks were with Geno Smith last week at home against the Saints. That's not acceptable to me, that. And that was the lasting thought that I had from this game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's, the way they played against the Saints was so run, and then punt, just like you said. And it was so frustrating in this game. They came out and it was nice to see them be a little more aggressive. I want to see them do that against the Packers. I want them to see that against the Cardinals. These are the things they need to hold on to and keep trying to build off of, because these are the things that we need to try to do if we're going to actually, if we are legit going to try to make a run for that. Go for that. We're 3-5. Go for broke at this point. You might as well. I mean, it's not like you're not wasting the season if you're trying to win games by, throwing the ball more or being more aggressive or whatever the case might be.
They tried a trick play today, Robbie. They tried a trick play today.
Yeah, I know.
Why didn't you do that last week?
I don't know. Yeah,
you tell everybody you're going to run and run against the Saints.
Yeah.
And then the Saints go, oh, what? Well, we've heard that because we have ears as well. so they prepare for the run, and they just put everybody in the box, and that linebacker Davis is having a MVP caliber game, and they don't go, oh, they've kind of sussed this. We'll just keep doing it, and we'll just do it again and again and again and again and again. No yards, no yards, no yards. Keep doing the same thing over and over again. No creativity, no questions asked. They lose that game and then come out today and they're doing bloody trick plays. They're being aggressive on first and second down. Why? Because they're playing the Jaguars. Cowardice. Cowardly approach to that Saints game.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And the other thing too is like I said earlier, I just get really tired. Like if they were trying to get Rashad Penny involved so early, quickly in that game. It was like, why wasn't Alex Collins in the game early against the Saints? And why was it Penny? And then today, same thing. Like Penny was like, they got on the goal line and they're going to give it to the most fragile running back in the league. Like, get real. Like, he's not going to get in there for you. I don't know. This is a lot of things that just were super frustrating. But again, I'm not trying to rate on anyone's parade. I'm excited we won. But again, take it for a grain of salt. It's the Jaguars. It's not that exciting.
Are you excited, though? I mean, if anybody's legitimate,
yeah,
I'm not casting aspersions here.
I am excited that we won. Listen, if we would have come on here and we would have lost to the Jaguars, you know how pissed off I'd be right now. So yes, I'm excited we won. I mean, it wasn't like thrilling of a game, but it was nice to see them do some things different. I want to see that carried forward. My fear is that kind of what you're saying, the Seattle media is going to come out and be like, well, now we're going to chance the playoffs. And I think I just saw, Curtis say something about Pete Carroll said something about, well, we officially started the second half of the season today, and this is where we start to turn it on or whatever. Yeah, now we got a bye week. Here's the thing. Show up against the Packers and prove it there. I don't know. I'm not ready to buy into anything yet. For me, it just feels like this is just like we beat a really, really bad Jaguars team. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not excited at all. Thanks to Jasmine for doing what I asked not to do. So I have a little feature here: put user in timeout. Jasmine's going in timeout for spoiling the Saints game. Thanks a lot, Jasmine. Muppet. Anyway, I'm not excited about this win. And what I was going to say, Robbie, is I'm not having a go at anybody. If you are legitimately excited from that, then all power to you. You, Robbie, or anybody else. I mean, they even showed shots of the fans towards the end of the game, and even the Seahawks fans who were there just looked like they were thinking, "Can we go yet?" Oh God, there's another 3 minutes left. Like it was. I thought it was a dull, boring experience, and there's like this when you're a fan of a team in this position. Like if they'd have lost, I would have been thinking at least we can have a proper conversation over the next 2 weeks about what happens next. So I would have taken that as a silver lining. And now that they've won, I think, okay, there's that one little part of you, and every fan's like this. It doesn't matter what I write on the blog or what we talk about in one of these streams. There's always a part of you that thinks, oh, if they just win this game, and if they'd have just won that game, and if they'd have won the last 2 games and gone 3-0 again with Geno Smith, we'd have been sat here and we'd have been talking up the chances of Wilson coming back and then, maybe having a run and why not? And we'd be looking forward to it. So there's definitely part of me thinking, well, they've won today, and at least for 2 weeks we can at least look forward to the next game, and then but then I think we kind of know what's going to happen. Wilson or no Wilson, they're playing the Green Bay Packers. They're probably going to lose that game. You brought up Rashad Penny. There are sometimes, Robbie, I watch the NFL, and listen, at the end of the day, the guys they're still human beings who play in the NFL. They're not superheroes. They're not Marvel superheroes. They are human beings. Every now and again, I see a player and I think, I could do that. And I legitimately believe that I could have done what Rashad Penny's done in these last 2 games. I do think that, because that's how bad he has been. Here are the numbers. Today, he had 7 carries for 7 yards. So if they'd have put him under center and just had him fall into the center from the snap, he would have matched his performance. If he did that 7 times, he would have matched his performance in all likelihood, actually running the ball. And I like the fact that Carroll said off the Saints game, we didn't get him into enough space. Well, they tried to get him into space today. I like that's the fact now that, well, they've just resigned that Penny can't run through the middle. They've got to get him into space. Otherwise, he's practically useless. So 7 carries for 7 yards today, and it was 9 yards from 6 carries the week before. There is no point having him on the roster. I know why they're doing it, and it's not to try and get him started, I think, Robbie, like you were saying. The reason they're doing it is because they spent a first-round pick on this guy. And every week that Nick Chubb goes out there and runs his arse off for the Browns, it kills a little bit of Pete Carroll and John Schneider dies inside. So they are desperately hoping that they will get something, anything, from this 4-year investment in this player. So they keep trying and trying and trying to get something out of Rashad Penny, and it never happens. And I know they don't trust Travis Homer and DJ Dallas to actually run the ball. Those 2 guys are on the roster for special teams alone. I get that. And I'm not for a second saying that those 2 guys would do a great deal better. But they can't do any worse. There is no point giving Rashad Penny carries anymore. He is done and dusted. Just give those carries to Travis Homer and DJ Dallas if you want, or promote someone from the practice squad, or whatever, or trade for somebody this week. Whatever you want to do it. There's no point having Rashad Penny on the roster. And no one's trading for him. You might as well just cut him. He's rubbish.
Yep. No one's going to trade for him. Well, speaking of trading, let's talk about this real fast because the trade deadline's coming up. And I caught a little bit of your podcast last week as I was catching the train back to my hotel. And listen, I the only player that and it was only because it happened on Thursday night that I could see that maybe like Gerald Everett, I get tired of like the little sweep arounds, end arounds with him, trying to get him the ball. Like, you know, we have Uncle Will and we have Colby Parkinson. It's the guy really needed. I know he's supposed to be a great tight end or whatever, but we don't get him involved enough. I could see us, you know, maybe getting a 5th or maybe even a 4th round from the Green Bay Packers for him. Like, you know, that'd be someone that I'd be willing to trade. And you know, I see these things, people talking about like Dwayne Brown or whatever. You're not going to trade Dwayne Brown. That'd be stupid. And you're not trying to piss off Russell Wilson. You know, I know he's not playing that great, but, you know, here's a guy that I think you could trade. I know Penny's not going to get you anything. No one's going to come knock on the door for him. I mean, even a team that's like decimated at running back isn't going to give him very many carries. So, yeah, I mean, the only player I could honestly think of is Gerald Everett. The only guy that I could really think of possibly trading, unless anybody's gotten any other ideas on players we would trade. Because if we would have lost this game, I guarantee there would have been a fire sale, right? I mean, I already know that, you know, they're not going to make the playoffs, but I think at this point you could still trade Gerald Everett and still have enough, you know, tight end depth to not have to worry about, you know, if someone goes down, oh no, you're really screwed or whatever, if they're really legitimately trying to make an NFC, you know, wild card run. But I don't know, man. I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on the trade line. Who else do we got? Like, and we need to get more picks. I mean, obviously.
The problem with Everett is his contract is such that if you trade him, you actually, it's going to cost you money. So his dead cap hit is $6 million. His cap hit is $4 million. So obviously they've played, you know, near enough half a season now. So essentially, you know, divide that in half. So you'd kind of be looking at a cap hit of 2 for the rest of the season, dead cap hit of, you know, so yeah, I think that if you move him, you're not making a financial saving that you can carry over into next year.
No, so it would have a draft pick, right?
No, let me finish. Okay. So it would have to be a pick worth having. And the thing with Gerald Everett is, I don't think that you're going to get anything that, like, if you were to say to me a 6th round pick for Gerald Everett, which is probably the kind of range that I think you'd be looking at for a guy who is essentially a rental till the end of the season. He may not be known to get a 6th because if he was on a 3-year deal and somebody really liked him, they might offer a little bit more. But if you bring in Everett, you are literally saying we're having him for half a season, and then we're going to have to, you know, talk to him again and come to some kind of agreement. That is such limited value that if it was a 7th, let's say, or a late 6th, like a Green Bay, you said Green Bay, the 6th rounder, I kind of think, well, what's the point? You know, like if you were getting a pick in the first 4 rounds, then yeah, you're right. We then need more picks in that kind of range. Then I'm not that. But and listen, I think I was never a big Gerald. I think people got way too carried away with Gerald Everett. I think you only had to look at his stats in LA to see that he was being overrated. That is when he was in LA, he was with the guys who Shane Waldron's offense essentially. So and the Seahawks have never been particularly good at getting tight ends involved in the Carroll era. So I was never that optimistic about him. And he's not providing value for money. He is providing Greg Olsen value for money at this stage. So that's 2 years in a row where they've spaffed a load of a few million on a tight end that they're not going to use. So waste of money. And frankly, from next year, move on. I'm not bothered. I'm ready. I hope there's a new offense, and maybe the next offense will do a better job getting tight ends involved. But for me, move on. But I don't think you're going to get any particular value there. I've seen some really daft suggestions this week saying, "I'll get rid of Dwayne Brown," and people are just insane to say stuff like that. And I don't know what you would get for Dwayne Brown either. For again, essentially half a season, and a guy pushing 40, you're not going to get value there. You're not going to get a third-round pick for Dwayne Brown. And then you have to play Stone Forsythe. You try and get Russell Wilson killed when he gets back. That's just... you really want Russell Wilson out the door in the off-season, then take away his left tackle for the rest of this year. I don't think you get anything for Carlos Dunlap, who's been awful, frankly. Could you potentially get something for something like Kerry Hyder, a late-round pick? Maybe. Again, I don't think anyone's going to be rushing to the door for that. This is part of the problem for the Seahawks, that there just isn't anybody. I'm looking at the full roster now, and there isn't a single player that I can think of that would be worth trading that would get you any kind of decent return. If they hadn't paid Jamal Adams, then maybe they could have just dealt him for whatever they could get. If they hadn't paid him, that would have been a good idea. But obviously they can't do that, Robbie, because they've committed to him now. So we have to wait and see in the offseason what exactly the details of his contracts are, so we can find out whether it's even remotely possible to get rid of him in the offseason, or whether they're going to be stuck with him for a couple more years. So people can say, someone's just put in here Jamal for a third. Carroll and Schneider ain't going to do that in the same way they're not going to give up on Rashad Penny. So, but in the offseason, different topic. So I don't see anybody, and I don't know if anybody saw this. John Schneider was on with Steve Rabel before the game. I think Steve Rabel, isn't it? He does the interviews with. And he was said, "Oh, it's the trade deadline coming up this week. John, anything going on?" And he went, "Oh, it's a lot quieter this year," which was John Schneider speak for nothing's happening this year. So I'm not surprised. They aren't going to spend anything. They're not buyers at the moment, because, and if they were buyers, they wouldn't have $12 million of cap space just sat there, because they'd never done that before. They've always used that on somebody when it's needed to fill out their roster. I don't know if you noticed this, Robbie, but Marquis Blair suffered a season-ending injury in the last game. They haven't even put him on IR. He's had knee surgery to repair I think it was a broken kneecap. He's not coming back this year. They've not even put him on IR to bring somebody else onto the roster.
I thought they did, and they brought up that Tanner Muse guy.
No. Huh. Marquis Blair was inactive for this game. He was on the list of inactives.
Huh.
I think they've been playing with a 52-man roster for the last few weeks. For whatever reason, they are saving money. Listen, I've got a sneaking suspicion why that might be. I hope I'm not right. But
I know what you're thinking too, and I hope you're not right.
They're saving money. They're saving money.
Well, for that kind of cap hit, if you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, then the kind of cap hit that you're going to get for what you're thinking is going to be brutal.
Listen, let me just throw this out, because before the game, no one's talked about it. No one on Twitter was talking about it, and no one's. Someone in the comment section explained to me, am I missing something here? Why is Marquis Blair still on the roster? Why has he not been put on IR? They've announced that he is out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's had surgery. He's out for a long period of time. They've announced that. And he was inactive for the game today. He is on the roster. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I think they're saving money. I think maybe it will cost them more to put him on IR and deal with that, and then essentially pay somebody else for another week before the bye. I think what they've done is they've saved themselves a paycheck this week, Robbie. I legitimately think that's what they've done. They've saved themselves a paycheck for this week, because they've got the bye now, so he can go on IR tomorrow. They don't have to bring anybody up next week because they're not playing. And then for the Green Bay game, they can do something. So they've saved themselves 2 weeks of salary. by not having a 53-man roster for this game, essentially.
Interesting.
That's it. Somebody explain that to me. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they're just being especially thrifty. Maybe they've, I don't know. Maybe the staff party is going to get an extra round of drinks or something this year because of this. I have no idea. But no one's talked about the fact that they haven't put that, and they've got $12 million not spent. They've had games where they've gone into it with a 52-man roster. They haven't put Marquis Blair on IR. Where they waited a week, didn't they, to put Russell Wilson on IR? They didn't put Russell Wilson straight on IR for the 3 weeks. I think they waited until the very last minute to do that. I find it all very, very peculiar. And yeah, people are, someone's already said why, I wonder why they're saving money, Robbie. Maybe it's just because so it's not just because of the elephant in the room. They did essentially, when they reworked Dwayne Brown and Quandre Diggs's salaries for this year, they pushed dead money into next year. So they are going to be paying them money, I think, next year. And I think that by saving money that they don't use this year, they can essentially write that off. So they've been clever with the money. So they've given them both a pay increase, but the extra money they've got now needs to be saved for next year so that doesn't, count on the accounts, essentially. That's one reason why it could be. The other one is because they're going to take on a significant dead cap hit with Russell Wilson, because even if you trade him next year, and that does create some cap space. Last year, you would have took on a huge dead hit. This year, you would actually save money by moving him, but you would still be paying Russell Wilson a lot of money to go and play somewhere else. So the dead cap hit takes some of that away. They're the only two things that I can think of why they're doing all this money saving in the moment, Robbie.
Yeah, and then Tanner brings up a good point too. And then there's Collier who's just sitting there wasting $3 million and just being inactive. What a waste of talent that guy is, right? I mean, there's another guy. You just hope we get anything for him. I'd take a seventh.
They're not going to get anything for him.
I was lucky if anybody trades for him. Lucky, and I think it would have already happened. I already think it would have happened if they would have had an offer on the table. They would have taken anything at this point. There's nothing's going to happen, and he's just going to be sitting there wasted until he gets cut this off season or whatever. Maybe they cut him mid-season. I don't know, but it absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it's great. I've said it. I think I said in an article, and I think I've said it on here, Robbie. The Jamal Adams trade is a fireable offense, but when you combine it with the Rashad Penny and LJ Collier failures. And I think you can include Marquis Blair in that now, because essentially they had the Rashad Penny first rounder in 2018, and then they had the number 21, which they traded down and ended up being LJ Collier, and they had 29, I think it was, which they traded down and turned into Marquis Blair. So they had 3 first-round picks in the 2018 and 2019 drafts on the day that the draft began, and the 3 picks ended up being Penny, Collier, and Blair. Now that was at the start of the reset. Now, if people are wondering why the Seahawks are nowhere near contending for the Super Bowl, there's your answer. You cannot do that. That's not good enough. And then and look, well done on the DK Metcalf pick, which has salvaged essentially the 2018 and 2019 drafts. People were very kind to the 2020 draft. I don't like the fact they've moved Damian Lewis to left guard, and Jordan Brooks had a good game against the Saints, but not done a lot else, has he? They've not drafted well enough at all. They've not drafted well enough at all. They go into this draft this year with 3 bloody picks, for crying out loud. One of them's been on IR since first half of the first game of the season. The other one's a 6th round left tackle who may or may not be on the roster in a couple of years. And fair play, Trey Brown looks all right. But, they've drafted abysmally. And this is why there has to be change, Robbie. Someone has to pay for this. They do. I mean, it's just like you never want to get into this position, Robbie. You never want to come on to, a block, even as a fan like we are. I take no pleasure in sitting here and saying someone has to lose their job. Because, you talk about people's dreams and aspirations and their livelihoods. But we're also talking about professional elite level sport here.
Yeah.
And it's you go into this business knowing it's a cutthroat industry, knowing that if you don't deliver, then there will be consequences. That's just the name of the game. And in many ways, NFL is a lot more, it's a lot more patient with their coaches and GMs than a lot of other sports. In this country, you appoint a head coach. We don't call them head coaches, we call them like managers. So we have managers in English football. We've just seen a coach has lost his job today in the region that I work in. He's had 15 games. 15 games. That's a third of a season, and he's lost his job. That's how it works. If you don't deliver, you're out. Now listen, Pete Carroll and John Schneider delivered it big time the first do around. Second time round, it's been a disaster. But with Pete, Pete hasn't got 10 years. He's not going to be coaching until he's 80. He hasn't got another 10 years to turn this around, Robbie. And John Schneider's made too many errors. So that's why it has to be time for somebody else to have a go here. But the point I would make, and I made in my article this week, which I would urge people to go and check out, because I think there's a lot of BS being said about, it's going to take 3 years for the Seahawks to get back here and there, and you can't pay a quarterback this much and succeed. Well, I think I wrote 2 articles this week that I'm really proud of. One pointing out exactly why you can succeed with an expensive quarterback, and the other one explaining why the Seahawks just need to mimic the Green Bay Packers and just go and get their version of Matt LaFleur. That doesn't mean I want a carbon copy of Matt LaFleur. I just mean somebody who's a bit more progressive, someone who is going to make the most of the pieces that you actually have on this team, somebody who can quickly turn things around with a different mindset in terms of offensive football, defensive football, shift some resource with a GM from positions like linebacker and safety to the trenches, and the Seahawks can be good again. The Packers went from a 6-7 win team, Robbie, to a 13-3 win team getting to back-to-back NFC championship games. The Seahawks can do the same, but it's going to take some change, not complacency.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And kind of just want to touch back on your point of just being fans. Like, listen, I was at the game last week and you can feel it in the air there. Just like the whole atmosphere it's not the same. Yeah, we would get loud and we would cheer and such, but it was just the whole vibe of the stadium was different. And then I'm going to be honest, I couldn't even give away my tickets today. I have 4 seats and I'm a season ticket holder. I couldn't even give my tickets away today. I was trying to sell them. No one was buying them. I tried to give them away. No one would take them. Like, no one would take them. And that just speaks volumes right there, just of how far we've fallen as an organization. If I can't even give tickets away, like, it was crazy. It's an absolute, like, it's mind boggling to me that we are even in this situation. And, I know people are going to point out, like, oh, well, Russ is hurt, things just haven't gone out, rookie play caller and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's not really it. It starts at the top. It's been this way for a while. Pete had his chance to do the reset. Like, he earned that right. He earned the right to do a reset in 2018 because of what he had done. Him and John had earned that. It was their privilege and right to do that. They've tried and it has failed. It is time for them to move on. I'm 100% on board on that. I know people don't like hearing it. I'm on board with you, Rob. Build a statue of Pete out front. I mean, the guy deserves it. He's been put him in the Ring of Honor immediately. By the way, let me just tell you how cool it was to be there at the game with Matt Hasselbeck was getting put in the Ring of Honor, and how fired up I was after his halftime speech. I'm just saying, like, it is time to move forward. Get a young, offensive-minded coach. You don't trade Russ. You keep him. You try to make him happy. Let's try to build around him. We've got great offensive weapons. Let's go get a stud running back. Let's beef up our offensive and defensive line, and let's get it. Like, I think we could do it. I don't think the rebuild will take that long.
Yeah, I agree. Can I just ask though? There was some suggestion that Matt Hasselbeck had a tipple or two before going out and delivering that speech? Bit of Dutch courage, maybe. Was there any sort of feeling as he was belting out that speech that maybe maybe he'd had some of Marshawn's bourbon before he headed out there?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. He was pretty emotional too, so I don't know. It was all cool. It was every part of it was fun. I really enjoyed that. I wish I could have been there tonight for Holmgren's, but man, I just, I thought the way he got fired up, and it was cool. That was probably the best part of the whole game, honestly.
Yeah, I will say this. I think you've raised a very interesting point there, Robbie, and one that we've certainly not talked about. I think we're entering a different age in terms of sports fandom, and I think that I don't think teams are going to be able to take for granted fans anymore. And I hate to use this word because I know that where I work and in the region where I live, the minute that you start referring to fans as customers, people get very angry. But ultimately, increasingly that's what fans are. And you can't take them for granted in a way that perhaps you could in the past. The reason for that is that 15 and 20 years ago, there wasn't a great deal to do on a Sunday. I mean, where I live, I don't in the UK, I'm not sure what it is like in America. The shops weren't even open on a Sunday. So, and they would close very early, and Sunday television over here. So we would, I'm talking 15, 20 years ago in England, we had 5 channels if you didn't have satellite. Sunday evening TV was just a collection of, the coziest, quaintest little programs about little English villages and, little people going to the pub and having a jolly good chat. It was stuff like that. It's like Murder, She Wrote and stuff, and, would be on during the day. So there wasn't a great deal to do. And sports over the weekend provided it filled a window for a lot of people because that was exciting compared to what the alternatives were. Now people have a choice, and after a year and a half of being stuck inside for not even being able to go out to work, I think people have kind of decided they kind of like doing that. A lot of people have. I personally don't, but a lot of people have. And they're thinking now, well, I could go to the game and stand in the cold and the wet and the snow sometimes and be uncomfortable and have to get there in the traffic or get public transport there. And, if you want to go for a slash, the toilets are horrible. Or I could just stay at home and have 6 beers and watch the game in my pajamas. It's like, people are going to think that way now. And if the product's crap, people aren't going to want to be there. Now, I'm looking at some of these NFL stadiums. Tony Pauline put a picture of the Jets stadium. Jets have passionate fans. I've been to a Jets game when they were crap and it was pretty full. It was 25% full in their stadium today. I'm looking at other stadiums. Check out the Atlanta game against the Carolina Panthers. That's a divisional game. I think the Falcons have won the last 2 games, haven't they? Or the last 3. There was nobody there. Before kickoff in that Seahawks game today, there was nobody there. The stands filled up in the end, fair play. But I bet you anything there was some empty seats in Lumen Field today.
There was at least 4. I know that because mine didn't get used.
But if the product's not good enough, people will vote with their feet these days. Yeah. And I think you have to, and all teams have a duty to do this, and some will and some won't, because there are bad franchises out there who are never going to give their fans hope and belief. And there are even franchises out there who will give their fans some hope and belief and then snatch it away, e.g. the Bengals today. So there are, what kind of team do the Seahawks want to be? What kind of team do the Seahawks want to be? That's the big question, because they have to be able to give their fans some hope and some belief and some excitement. Otherwise, people will vote with their feet. Because the Seahawks fan base is not as unique as maybe some people in Seattle want to believe. This is not... who are the fans who will turn up regardless of performance? I think possibly Cowboys, Steelers, maybe Eagles. There's very few fan bases that will just go whatever the case. And the Seahawks are at a crossroads here, Robbie. And if they want to, if they want to build behind Russell Wilson and go in a different direction and be a progressive team and be very exciting, there's not going to be any issues there. If they want to be a team that trades their franchise quarterback, has someone like Geno Smith throwing the ball, then it's going to be empty in Lumen Field in a few years. And this person here has suggested Packers. They are a great example. Rain, wind, shine, whatever, snow, good record, bad record, Packers fans turn up. There's nothing wrong with them, mate, and the Seahawks haven't got a fan base like that. And it's not as loud as it was. And yeah, I think the franchise has to be very cautious of their next move over the next 6 months.
Yeah, listen, I just wanted to comment real fast. So that looks like Josh Potter said something. Look, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, and you're right. The defense is playing better. We said some good things at the beginning, and we were talking about this exact same thing where we don't want people to buy into the fact that we're not that far out of the wild card, because the fact of the matter is we do have the Packers and the Cardinals coming up. These are 2 games that, hey, we win those 2 games. my train of thought and my focus completely changes. And I think, those are 2 games. If we win those 2 games, then hey, we're on the right path. But I look at those 2 games after beating a really, really bad Jaguars team, and I don't see us beating those 2 games. I'm not trying to be super doom and gloom. I'm just trying to be more realistic on the outcome of how I think the franchise is right now. And just having been at the game, a very winnable game against the Saints, by the way. I just felt like we could have won that game. We played it super safe and super boring and didn't really give ourselves a good chance to win that game. But I mean, this is just kind of the way it is. I mean, and not trying to be doom and gloom. And I said the same thing that you said, Josh, last year. Anything can happen and you sneak in the playoffs. And we got in the playoffs and got our asses handed to us by the Rams after just beating them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, you're right. Anything can. I mean, look at the Giants. Then they won the Super Bowl. I mean, anything can happen in the Super Bowl, or when you get to the playoffs. But you also have to have a defensive line like the Giants have, and have an offensive line that can protect the quarterback. I mean, you're looking at our team right now, and you have to be more realistic about kind of where those guys or where our team is at with the players that we have. It's just not. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I just don't see a whole lot of progression being made going forward. This season we can easily turn it around, like we were talking about. It's not going to take 3 years to flip this thing. Could be 1 year and we could be right back on the top. But
you're being too kind. I can't wait anymore. You're being too kind. Josh, I'm sorry, Josh. Just give it a rest with the doom and gloom stuff, will you? Come on. It's not frustration. It's realism. The defense is playing a lot better. Come on. Look who they've played. It's just the same as last year. Oh, they're playing better against Colt McCoy and Dwayne Haskins and CJ Beathard. Oh, well done. And then, like Robbie said, you get hammered by the Rams again with the backup quarterback and then Jared Goff playing without a thumb. I mean, come on. There's no pass rush. And Darrell Taylor's the only one who creates any pressure. The pass rush is rubbish. Jamal Adams is a great big honking white elephant on the roster. It's a disastrous trade. They've played Jameis Winston in the rain and wind, and all he had to do was dump it off to Alvin Kamara on a little check down or hand him the ball, and that was enough for the Saints to win the game. They've played the rotting corpse of Ben Roethlisberger's NFL career, and they've played the Jaguars, who are absolutely atrocious. Let's see how well this defense plays against Aaron frickin' Rodgers in 2 weeks' time. I am sick of people just going, oh, the defense is getting better. It's not getting better. Look, let's wake up and smell the coffee a little bit here, Seahawks fans. We're not being doom and gloom. Everything we've talked about on this podcast for the last 18 months, all of the concerns, all of the things we've raised have come true. From the Russell Wilson saga, which we called 2 months before it happened, to the pass rush not being good enough, which we called months before the season began last year, to the Jamal Adams trade being a bad idea and pure desperation. Look what's happened to that. To the fact that the cornerback position was a nightmare going into this draft and into this season, and that the center position was a mess as well. It's all come true. Eventually, you're just going to have to do us a bit of favor, and just when we're saying stuff that's not overly positive, is maybe just go, yeah, fair enough. They've called a few things right. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. The last thing that I've stayed up to the last 3 weeks to watch a game that has finished at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for this team with Geno Smith playing quarterback. That's somebody who does that, does not want to see the Seahawks lose and does not want to come on these streams and talk about negatives all the time. But I'm not going to sit here today and go, what a jolly good game that was. Bravo. Everything's fixed. The defense is better. And when Russell gets back, we'll get that 7th spot in the wild card. Even if the Seahawks get that 7th spot in the wild card, they're going to end up playing the Packers in Lambeau in week 1 or whatever, or the Cardinals or the Rams. They'll get smoked. And then all that will happen is we'll have the same conversation we always have, where people will go, well, the Seahawks have got into the playoffs X amount of years in a row, and they did it again this year, and Pete Carroll's doing a great job because of that, and we'll be the same thing, and then we'll have another Russell Wilson saga. Maybe he'll get traded this year, and then we could all look forward next season to, I don't know, name a random veteran quarterback who can, the 2021 Tavares Jackson or Charlie Whitehurst quarterbacking the Pete Carroll offense as they gallantly run into a brick wall 17 times against a good opponent so they can keep it tight. I'm not having that anymore. and they've lost to they've beaten rather a disgraceful team today. So I'm not going to take any massive pleasure from this game, and I don't apologise for saying it this way, Robbie, and just because
no, I love it. I love it. Go for it.
I'm not. I am
pod,
not
man.
having it.
Say
We
what you want.
we talk. We take things seriously here,
We do.
and if the fan, for the fans who just want to be, rah rah Seahawks, that's fine. I have no issue with that. You fan however you want. There are plenty of Facebook groups. The UK Seahawks fan, you would think the team was unbeaten the way that they speak on there, and I'm sure that's the same on many others. Many other forums. They love the silver lining. They like to. Nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of forums and formats for you to indulge in that type of fandom. Here we just like to talk about things this way, seriously, and we've got a lot right. So, not going to apologise for that at all. Right then, I don't know. I've completely lost my train of thought, Robbie, having that rant.
You're good, man. It's funny. I think it's hilarious. Good cop, bad cop.
It's good. It's good to have a. It's good to have a rant a week.
Listen, the only thing is I know where Josh is coming from. I have some of that, I have some of those thoughts sometimes too, like I have a little more optimism side of me, but I mean, here is the thing is like, understand the things that we are saying that it's not meant to be doom and gloom. It's supposed to be just realistic. That's basically it. And you said it a lot more fire than I did.
Corey says offensive game plan was 2 weeks too late. Yes.
Yeah.
Corey, that is not just a fantastic point. It is a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. If anybody has any super chats, we will be wrapping up shortly. Then send them in. Join Corey. Send in a super chat. There were a couple of other things I was going to talk about. But the rant has completely thrown me off track. I've got to be honest there, Robbie. I did want to talk a little bit about draft stuff, just briefly, seeing as I do write Seahawks draft blog. I've watched a lot of the draft class, and people may be thinking, where is the draft right now? I thought it was really interesting, Robbie, that Todd McShay put out his first top 32 board, and Mel Kiper updated his this week. And if people have read those, I think ESPN have started making their work free rather than behind a paywall. They're all over the place, and that's not a slur against them. That's not me being negative about Todd or Mel, who I think are great. It's just indicative of where this draft class is. It is all over the place. This draft class is a nightmare. I wouldn't hate to be a professional draft pundit because that seems like quite a good job. But the people who are essentially just paid to write and talk about the draft are going to have a really hard time doing it because there just aren't first round prospects. And if Seahawks fans want to feel better about the Jamal Adams trade, then at the very least,
there's your silver lining right there.
Well, yes, I mean the win does. If they end up picking sort of 15th, let's say in this draft, let's just say 15th, middle of the first round, whatever. They're probably not going to actually. I mean, there will be somebody drafted in that range, Robbie, who ends up being good because it's a draft. There always is somebody kind of drafted in that range who is quite good. I suspect that whoever the Jets take, you're not going to be sat there on draft night going, "Oh, I can't believe we didn't get them," because there aren't those players in this draft. What there is some relatively decent depth. I've got a longer list of players that I've seen and liked this year, a longer list than I have in other years, but all of those players I can't give high grades to. Like they're all kind of like there's question marks about a lot of them. Like there's about 4 or 5 running backs that I like, but nearly all of them are one-year wonders. Nearly all of them are, you're wondering about just how physically explosive they are. Nearly all of them, you would say, like for example, Brian Robinson at Alabama can't pass protect to save his life. So you've got sort of question marks about them, and it means you want to put them in sort of round 3 and round 4. But that's fine because that's what the Seahawks are probably going to be picking, this year, rather than in that first round. So there is an opportunity, I think, in this draft to get good players in that sort of round 2 to round 4 range that can help you. And if you can get more picks in that range, then great. But it is going to be a very difficult draft class, I think, to really dig into until the Senior Bowl in terms of the high picks, until the Senior Bowl and then the Combine. And I tell you now that I think what the first round is going to be full of, this is my sort of November the 1st. It's November the 1st now here. October 31st projection, Robbie, is that we will see more athletes going in the first round than ever before, because I think there's going to be such a difficulty in projecting players this year that I think the best athletes of the combine are going to end up going in the first round. That's what I think is going to happen.
Interesting. It's not a good draft for, I mean, obviously quarterback is a terrible draft this year, but what about running backs? You see, I mean, I think I saw you had a couple that you're listed. You said there's 4 or 5 that you're interested in. Is there any ones that are Seahawky running backs that you see that you?
I mean, obviously, I suppose it depends who's making the pick, doesn't it? Because if it was Carroll and Schneider, then they have very fixed type of running back they like. But if it's somebody else, then it might open up, all types of. But I mean, the Seahawks would never draft an Austin Eckler, but then they probably would. I don't think they'd have ever drafted Derrick Henry either. But they would have drafted Nick Chubb. They just chose not to. So the running backs in this draft that I've written about, obviously there's Kenneth Walker, who had a great game at the weekend for Michigan State. Very patient runner, accelerates quickly, shifty, vision is very good. I don't know if he's particularly explosive. If he would turn up to a combine and jump like a 38-inch vertical or not, I'm not sure about that. But there are certainly things that he likes. Well sized. I think Brian Robinson at Alabama is good. I think good passing game, runs tough, breaks tackles, yards after contact. However, he's highly cut, which I know some teams don't like. And his pass protection is an absolute disaster that needs work. Zach Charbonnet's pass protection at UCLA is very good. He's a tough runner. He can get the hard yards. I'm not sure whether he will necessarily be a feature runner, because he's not even a feature runner for UCLA. They will give him 10 carries and give somebody else 10 carries and give somebody else 10 carries. But there's definitely something in there. And I think he is a good athlete. He's well-sized. Certainly could imagine him being a useful piece for a team and somebody that you could lean on in certain opportunities when you needed to. Jerome Ford at Cincinnati is a transfer from Alabama. Big, very fast, accelerates very quickly, explosive, home run threat, but again, gets spelled a lot and is part of a rotation rather than a bell cow type thing. And with those kind of guys, you always wonder, okay, when they get to the next level, are they necessarily going to be like that feature runner? I saw a guy called Tyrion Davis-Price for LSU, not been used an awful lot, has had limited carries, but I like his frame, I like his size. As a late round pick, I could see him coming in and having a little bit of a flyer there. There's Breece Hall at Minnesota, who is big and fast. I'm just wondering if he is explosive enough. He looks heavy, and I worry about his conditioning a little bit just by looking at him. That might be completely doing him a disservice. He might take his shirt off and have the best six-pack in the world. But just looking on tape, Robbie, I thought maybe there could be some conditioning issues there. So yes, there are some running backs in this draft class. There's no Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, big name, leads the way, obvious high pick type thing. But there are a collection of guys who could be available in the mid-rounds.
Right. Yeah. And listen, I only ask for a couple of reasons, right? I mean, I ask because Rashad Penny gone after this year. And Chris Carson, I don't know if he's going to play again, to be honest with you. The way it sounds and the way Pete was talking about him this week, then it doesn't sound like that neck injury doesn't sound like very good. It reminds me a lot of when Cliff Averill and Cam Chancellor hurt their necks and had those stingers. It reminds me a lot of that, and kind of the same answers Pete gave early on until we kind of found out, like, yeah, they're never going to play again. So I don't know if Carson's going to be around. Plus, at his salary next year, I think it's extremely expensive, isn't it? Didn't we get him like $8 million or something? Like, I just don't see him coming back.
I'm having a look now.
He's super injury prone. I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about prior to re-signing him. One of the reasons I didn't want to re-sign him is just because of the injury history and the fumbling issues. So, I've
got the numbers here, Robbie.
Yeah, let's hear.
So, if they part with him, so his cap hits $6.4 million next year. But if they were to get rid of him, they would save $3.4 million. He has a $3 million dead cap hit. So if he retired, then I'm not sure what the situation. I'm not a cap type person. I'm not sure. I know that he had $5.5 million guaranteed at signing. He had a $4.5 million signing bonus. I don't know if he has to pay some of that back if he retires after 1 year, or whether the Seahawks would ask him to pay some of that back if he retired. But I think you
release him with an injury settlement or something like that.
Yeah, but I think you are on the essentially tied to that $3 million next year if he does not play for you. So yeah, I think you've raised a very interesting point there. If he it doesn't seem to me like the injury is maybe like a stinger because Carroll has been saying he's going to be back soon. He's feeling good. This, that, and the other. But what he personally seems to be thinking, I have an issue here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a player who's had a lot of injuries, Robbie, and he's got $5.5 million in the bank now. So he was a 7th round pick, didn't have the big money, and he's got $5.5 million in the bank. I don't know if he gets all of that if he retires straight away. But even if he just gets $1 million, let's say, that's life-changing money for anybody. So if he thinks now, I'm financially secure for the rest of my life, my family is financially secure for the rest of my life, I don't want to carry on being an NFL running back, he may well just call it a day after this. I mean, that was one of the things I was going to bring up, by the way, is that he's got this bloody neck injury and he's doing those stupid workouts all the summer that we were talking about then. Who could have seen this coming? If you'd have said to me during the summer, listen, I've been weight training for 6 years and I know which, when I see someone, and I know a fair bit about it. It's not bragging or anything. I'm just saying, I know when I see something, I can tell. I know enough about weight training. And you've got experience in this as well, Robbie.
I do.
I know when I look at something that you should not be doing that. Okay, I can look at somebody doing some apparatus in the gym, and if they're doing it wrong or doing it badly or doing something they shouldn't be doing, I know that I can tell straight away just by looking at that person. And when I was looking at Chris Carson, I was thinking, what the hell is that idiot doing? He's going to get himself so injured doing that, and potentially seriously. And if you'd have said to me, looking at his workouts, what kind of injury is he going to have? I would have guaranteed it was neck, shoulder, or back. Muppet.
Yep, neck or lower back were my 2 guesses too. Yeah,
and it's his neck. So there you go. And I don't know how the Seahawks. I don't know why they let him do that. I don't know why he did it. So, and he's gonna pay for it. He's gonna pay for it now because it's gonna cost him seemingly the rest of this season. And we'll see if he comes back, Robbie. I think it's an interesting point. Maybe he won't.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about running backs because I was curious.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the other thing that I was going to bring up, the Carson injury, because it's something we've not really talked about. We've done an hour, Robbie. I think that we're just about there. So I'm going to go back and watch the replay of Red Zone. I can see you can probably see over my right shoulder that the pause has stopped working during the course of this hour-long stream, and it has restarted again. So it's ongoing. I know, if you know, I'm in the Halloween spirit. Robbie has seen this. That is a orange skull and a bat with half a wing that I was messing around with my kids earlier. So I always find the happy Halloween thing a little bit strange because, you know, Halloween's meant to be like a horrorsome thing. It's a happy Halloween. But I hope all you guys have had a decent Halloween, shall we say. It's a very English way of putting it. Thanks for the 1 super chat, and also thank you for watching. Many people have been watching tonight as well, so great to have you with us. Subscribe to the channel, like it, share the videos on Facebook and Twitter and all of that to help spread the word. We'll be back again soon for another live stream. Enjoy the bye week, and we'll see you again soon.